just because you say, oh, well, I love bench pressing, but you've never even like come to work out with me and try some of these different fly variants, it's very unfair to you to say, oh, I like to bench press and that's it. Next exercise we have for building your chest is cable flies. So just to clarify, this can be different angles. You can do kind of like more mid-chest cable fly, but just cable flies in general, what do you feel about them?
I'm going to give it a B. I think any kind of fly movement, I'm just going to have it slightly below something like the bench press, which I just love so much. It's so easy to progressive overload on. I don't feel that you can get as much muscle development on these isolation exercises as much as you can during these big compound lifts, which obviously is going to disagree, but that's my opinion. I like the exercise and there's no way I would say don't do it. But if I had to pick one or the other, if I had one exercise I could do for the rest of my life, it's not going to be this one. It's going to be the bench press.
A plus cable flies. I think cable flies are an A+ chest movement for a number of reasons. Number one is those vectors of force and the angles. In contrast, let's say a dumbbell fly where you're stacking the joint at the top of the rep, you have vectors of force through the floor, gravity here, elbow, shoulder, you're stacking the joint, you have almost no tension on the chest. Now, conversely, angle of cable fly, you can selectorize that vector of force, meaning it can come from high, it can come from medium, it can come from low, it can come from the outside, meaning in the middle of the rep, you can still have a lot of contraction in your chest at that middle of the rep. The other thing is with cable flies is allows, number two, the angular vector of force. So we can go from low to high, we can go from high to low, hitting mid chest, lower chest, pec minor, upper chest, in a very, very specific manner that's very safe. So not many people, same thing. You never heard somebody say, oh, I tore my pec doing a cable chest fly. I think the biggest reason that people don't appreciate or utilize cable chest flies as much as they potentially could is because they treat them as like an afterthought to their workout. They'll do their bench press, incline bench press, barbell bench press, dumbbell bench press, and they'll get to the end, they'll put 30 pounds on there and they'll be like, for like 12 reps. I'm like, you're doing literally absolutely nothing. If you put intentionality behind your cable chest flies and actually put some fucking weight on the stack and get a hold and a big negative and a big stretch and hold on that stretch, you are going to get a boatload of hypertrophy. The angular potential of doing things from different angles, from high to low, low to mid, is going to induce a different, obviously stimuli. And we want to talk about different stimuli because if you're doing the same movement patterns over and over again, think about it like this, Greg. If you were to do the same workout every single day for 10 years, what do you think the law of diminishing returns is going to be on that workout over after that first, let's say 2 months?
Well, personally, I think you have to enjoy what you're doing. And so if you got any exercise program, if you love it and you want to do it for 10 years straight, so long as you're progressive overloading or perhaps taking deloads at times, it's going to work. Now, if you are sick of something, like if you're doing the bench press for 3 months straight and you're like, I'm kind of bored of it, you're not going to push as hard, then you should definitely switch. So I'm not somebody that says go to the gym and switch workouts every time. If you want to do the same, for example, pec deck or flies or any of that every single day for a whole year, I'd be a fan of that. So I really think it's what do you want to do? To me, I'd rather somebody do what they want to do in the gym more so than what's scientifically backed as the best possible exercise. I think it's more important to do an exercise that you love so that you'll do it for the rest of your life.
That being said, I will put one major caveat to that. Every single person, even the guy sitting behind the camera, even the guy sitting right here, if you haven't tried the exercises and you haven't done them in the correct manner, you haven't given yourself an opportunity to cook like them. Mm-hmm. So just because you say, oh, well, I love bench pressing, but you've never even come to work out with me and try some of these different fly variants, it's very unfair to you to say, oh, I like to bench press and that's it. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I've had pro bodybuilders work out with me and be very skeptical of the way I train. They'll do it and they're like, whoa, dude, this is crazy. This is different. I like this. Oh, this angle is crazy. I've never felt my chest like this. Even Greg, we were doing back. He was like, oh, I don't usually stretch like this. We were doing some movements. He was like, my back is so opened up right now. Oh, yeah. I feel pumped, but it also feels like stretched out, elongated. I'm going to add these. This is a guy that probably would say, oh, I wouldn't do, I like the exercises I do. But then he tried my exercise. He was like, hey, hold on a second. I kind of like these too. I'm going to add these in to my routine. So don't be so short-sighted to say like, oh, well, I only like these exercises. You have to try different things, and that's going to help you to grow as an individual, but also grow in your repertoire of exercise categories and different exercises that you can do to provide different stimuli, because progressive overload is not limited to only increasing weight. You can modulate your exercise selection. You can modulate the way you're performing your reps, more time under tension, more range of motion, different rep schemes. These are all ways to progress your movement patterns without having to necessarily do the same movements, just going heavier. So that's why I'm rating pec or the cable flies is an A+, because you can do so many different variants and never really hit everything the same way twice. You can put a bench in front of it. You can do like literally leverage over it. We were doing a couple variants yesterday that hits different parts of the chest. If you're going to utilize them, really utilize them as working sets. Start to modulate up the weight, the time under tension you're utilizing, really connect with your chest, and also really open up. And I think that's also the big point that I've made a lot is if you can open up your chest while you're training, it's going to keep your front delt healthier. It's going to reduce risk of injury, so on and so forth.
And I think one of the biggest points he's making is that you have to give it a try. Like I've been training since I was 10 and I'm 47. That's 37 years of training. I've done powerlifting, bodybuilding, I've done a lot of different stuff. But what I did yesterday, 100% brand new, and I liked it. So just like he said, vanilla ice cream, rocky road. Give it a try. If you don't like an exercise because you've never tried it, well, that's silly. At least give it a try, give it a shot. And if you don't like it, well, you tried. And so when you're early on in your lifting career, I would advise you to try so many different things. You might say, I want to be a bodybuilder. You join. Well, why not see, I want to squat, bench, and deadlift. Learn the exercises. Maybe you'll love that exercise. Maybe you won't. What about conventional versus sumo? You practice them both. Eventually, you'll pick one that you like, and you'll tailor your routine so that you can find some kind of a program that you want to be in the gym for the rest of your life. It's not about right now. Anyone can go to the gym for 3 months, but how are you going to do it in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Are you still going? Clearly being 47, I'm still training. I obviously like it enough to keep doing it this long. And so it's worked for me. Why don't you give it a try and maybe it'll work for you?
And I think, yeah, that's a great point. And I think that honestly, conversely, like that's why I love to train. Like the gym is such a place for me to try new things, new angles, new variants. And that's what makes it so fun. Like it's always a new adventure for me. And so the actual changing it up is what makes me so excited about it. Whereas maybe for you, it's more of like that routine and that building up within those specific exercises and building strength and inducing more hypertrophy using what you know and love. So I think both are totally fine ways of approaching the gym.
And it applies the same in dieting. I've coached so many people, thousands,
100%.
and they want the same exact diet every day. And I'm like, why would you want that? So I'll give them the diet plan. A week later, can I have this instead? Can I have that instead? So when I coach people, have so many different meal choices. I don't want you to be stuck on one thing. If you want to eat the same thing, French toast every day, good. If you don't, eat something else. I don't care if it's a lasagna every breakfast. Eat the things that you like, make sure it's healthy, and you'll do it for the rest of your life. If you don't love it, you're not going to do it.
We are going to move on to the dumbbell, either flat, incline, or decline press. There's dumbbell pressing in general.
Dumbbells, I'm going to have to give it a B rating because I don't, again, it's a slight bias. I don't like it as much. I find it much more easy to get injured. And the weird thing is this, I found it easier to do the bench press than any dumbbell pressing. When I did dumbbells, I found it extremely difficult to get the weights in place. With the amount of weight I could lift, I could probably have done 200-pound dumbbells. I can't get those in place. I could lift a lot of weight. And so do I really want to get injured? Do I want to tear a bicep? And it hurts my shoulder. And for me, dumbbell pressing was always hard on my shoulders. Chest pressing was a lot safer. And so I'd rather do something like with the cables or some kind of a machine, hammer strength and so on, than using dumbbells. And so my opinion is it's still a B. It's still great exercise. But again, when you're at the top, you don't really feel it. It's just like a rest. And so it's not an A, it's a B.
I'm going to give dumbbell pressing a B+. I think that the reason is because ergonomically you can move your hands in whatever way that feels the most comfortable for you. So like unlike a barbell or a Smith machine, you're stuck here. You can rotate, you can come here. It allows you, everybody's built a little differently and has different levels of mobility. And I think dumbbell pressing is a really good medium where you can really just utilize your musculature and your kind of exoskeleton to its maximal potential for pressing modality, because it just you can really control the weight in any way that you want to. The good points that Greg made were that it is a little dangerous, especially at heavier weights, to really rock that. You can really hurt your bicep, your front delt. So make sure you have a spotter. Make sure you honestly know what you're doing when going into heavier weights. And the reason I'm not giving it an A is because it's another exercise where it's a lot of ego, and the heavier the weight gets, the bigger that dumbbell is. So the amount of range of motion actually is decreased. A lot of people don't think about that. When you have 100-pound dumbbells, that thing's so big that you're literally only can get down to here. So your range of motion is right here. Whereas with, let's say, a machine press or hammer strength, you really dig back and get that maximal range of motion. I think is going to give you a more hypertrophic effect. And then there's still the risk profile of a dumbbell coming back behind you, an improper spot, some of your gym bro spotting you under your wrist, and one of the dumbbells going one way and the other one going the other way. It's just, I think, especially at really heavy weights, it's going to be dangerous. And it's an ego lift too. Like people still do talk about how much can you incline dumbbell bench press? How much can you flat dumbbell bench press? It's another number that's thrown out. Oh yeah, I can do the 150s, bro. How many times have you heard people, oh, I can do the 160s, 140s? It's another rite of passage from a strength perspective, and that's not going to be conducive to hypertrophy. It's not conducive to bodybuilding. There's so many top bodybuilders that don't do hardly any bench pressing or a lot of pressing at all anymore, just because they understand that to get the maximal growth, it's going to be more predicated on that range of motion, time under tension, stretch mediated hypertrophy, and peak contraction.
Now, we have almost like two camps here. We have like the machines camp, and we have kind of like the dumbbells or free weights. Like, what are you in terms for the chest? For me, right now, at least, I'm certainly a machine guy. I love machines way more. I can't think of the last time I actually went and just did dumbbells for chest. I'm always using machines. I find it easier. Do you do both, or do you have one that you like more than the other?
100% I do both. I think it's more, for me, I'm looking at those principles. Where am I maximizing the motor recruitment, the range of motion, the time under tension, and the safety of the movement pattern? So for me, that could be on a machine. Like we were doing the machine press, and that was great for me yesterday in terms of those principles. I was getting a big stretch at the back, huge peak contraction, never felt unsafe in any way because it's single planar, it's on a track. I could literally drop it at any time I want to. There's a foot pedal for me to release it, like all of the things that check my boxes. So for me, it's less about machines versus free weights versus cables. It's about which of those boxes am I checking in the most kind of fervent way, as opposed to like just trying to like pick, okay, it's either going to be a machine or a cable or a dumbbell. I think all of them have their efficacies based on what movement pattern you're performing. All right, last one we got is the traditional body weight push-up for chest growth. I know a lot of people wake up and they're like, oh, I'm going to do 100 push-ups in the morning. What do you think about push-ups for chest growth?
I really have to say that this is a great exercise for a beginner. Not a great exercise for somebody who's in advance. So I'm going to overall give it a C. And I think I'm biased because I can do so many push-ups. At least I used to be able to. Giving it a C. I think it's great to get you into the gym to start. Anyone can do them at home. If you can't do full push-ups, you can go on your knees. If you can't do those, you can go against the wall. But if you're a strong person, if you've been training for a while, push-ups are probably going to be far too easy.
Yep. So I think that push-ups for me, for bodybuilding purposes, are like a D exercise. I think that there's so many better exercises to utilize your time. Sure, you could do like maybe a deficit push-up with tempo. The reason I'm giving it a D from an actual scientific perspective is range of motion. It's a little shorter than I'd like to see. You're going to be limited by, obviously, the floor. The other thing is a lot of times people push up with their triceps more than their chest. I think it's a better tricep exercise than it is a chest exercise, just because usually you'll tuck your elbows all the way into your sides to get as much, obviously, force as you can. You're not going to like bow the elbow out. You're going to really tuck it in to try to get as many as possible. So I think that's a reason for the obviously there's just the push-up is, it's a great, if you're on vacation and you got no equipment and you want to get a quick pump on before the pool, sure, do some push-ups. But in terms of actually growing your chest over time, get in the gym, do some of these other movement patterns we talked about, progressive overload. That's what's really going to give you more bang for your buck.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're not saying don't do it, but there are other exercises that are better. And so if you have another exercise that's better, well, why wouldn't you do that? All right, hope you learned something. And then don't forget, please go subscribe to Eric Janicki. You can follow him on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. He's hilarious, highly intelligent. Look at the size of this guy. So please go and check him out. Got to give him over 1 million followers. Check it out. Subscribe right now.